It's the show the establishment warned you about.
Welcome back to the Dr. Tommy Show, joining you live from the free state of Florida in Tampa, Florida, from Echelon Health Studios, live on Rumble, and available on all the podcasting platforms, including iHeart, Amazon, Apple, Google, and the rest of them. So glad you're here. We have a lot of stuff to go over. It's kind of all over the place. One of the things that I was going to go over is all these Twitter files that keep dropping. This started last week, started on Friday actually, and then continued into this week. And there's been some interesting developments have continued since the first Twitter files dropped. So the first Twitter files dropped, I think it was Friday, right around 5 o'clock. And it was, they were given apparently from Elon Musk to this guy, Matt Taibbi, who is this journalist, kind of I guess they call him independent journalist or whatever the case is. Anyway, so this Matt Taibbi, he starts dropping all these Twitter files that basically show that the government and, well, at that time, not the government, it was the DNC, was working with Twitter to basically flag certain tweets that they didn't like, and also to reduce the impact of those tweets, either through suppressing the tweets and doing other things like just taking them down. For instance, one of the people that was really mad about it was James Woods, who was specifically listed in the Twitter file drop by Matt Taibbi as being one of the people that was blocked. So anyway, so that happened on Friday, and then there were supposed to be some more Twitter files dropped on Monday, they thought, maybe. And it turned out that it got suppressed a little bit or delayed a little bit, and really didn't know why. But now we find out that the reason why is because working at Twitter is this guy, used to be a FBI lawyer, named James Baker. So this guy, James Baker, was the lawyer who was apparently employed by Twitter, and he was some type of deputy general counsel. And Musk found out that Baker was actually going through these files unknowns to Musk before handing them over, and that's why it took longer for these to come through than they were supposed to have. So anyway, it's interesting that we have this Fibby lawyer who's working for Twitter, and it's this insidious relationship that we have between the government and Twitter and other social media companies that unbeknownst to your common ordinary American, that they didn't know this existed. People like myself, people like you probably thought this existed forever because we've seen it. And actually, if you go back in time, this was back in 2019, I believe. This is they were talking about shadow banning before, and shadow banning is involved where in Twitter they would suppress the speech of some people by limiting their interaction without the person even knowing it. And so this is called shadow banning. And one of the people that were shadow banned was, or some of the people that were shadow banned, they could tell that they were shadow banned because they didn't have the reach that they used to have. And but this was always denied, and it was well, this is some type of conspiracy theory. This isn't happening. And throughout this whole thing, there's been a lot of back and forth between the media and I guess people who are covering this about who knew what when. And one of the people that was discussed about was in the Twitter file dump was Jack Dorsey. So Jack Dorsey, prior to a few months ago, or maybe a half a year ago now, was the CEO of Twitter. He's founder and CEO of Twitter, and he was kind of the face of what was going on with Twitter as far as shadow banning people. And then he kind of quietly stepped down, and he installed this other guy who was there, Padawal or whatever his name was. And then he was fired as soon as Musk took over. So, but anyway, with his files that Matt Taibbi released, it said that Jack Dorsey was out of the loop on this. A lot of this stuff that was going on, a lot of this censorship of people's opinions that was going on, a lot of suppression of speech by Twitter that was going on. And then went out of his way to say that it looks like Jack Dorsey didn't have anything to do with this, and it was another general counsel lawyer, female, who was fired as well by Musk. So Dorsey kind of at least by these initial file releases, has been, I guess, it looks like, according to the release of files as it's filtered through by Matt Taibbi, it looks like, well, maybe Dorsey didn't know what's going on. You know, it's kind of like this thing where they used to say in Russia, Soviet Union back in the old days, there's a people that were starving in the Ukraine, which is part of the Soviet Union, and the people were starving in Ukraine, and they asked the people and the peasants of Ukraine, you know, the peasants actually told people who were leaving Ukraine and going back to Russia to please tell Stalin what's going on, because if Stalin knew what was happening, he would be very mad. So Stalin didn't know what was happening, and it's only because Stalin didn't know what was happening that they were going through this famine. And once Stalin finds out, once Papa Joe finds out, he's going to set things right. And it's that's what makes me think of with this Jack Dorsey situation is, you know, Jack Dorsey only knew, but Jack didn't know. Jack was, you know, Jack just didn't know. So here's some from Jack Dorsey back when he was heading Twitter, and this is what he had to say about it.
The content of its users? Does it hide what it would consider inflammatory comments, whether they be social or political?
Absolutely not. Twitter has always been about controls. People can follow whoever they want, and it's our job to make sure they see the most important things and the things that'll matter to them.
You really need to understand. I think that video is going to be used in a court of law against him and the company. Not only is he lying there, because he also lied. It's very obvious that he's lying. He's basically saying, we don't do anything. You could decide what to do, meaning you can block, you can
That's Dave Rubin talking. Somebody. This is off Dave Rubin's Instagram.
And this is the line. If you're a lawyer interested in First Amendment and any of this stuff, this is the line. Our job is they see the most important things. Well, if your job is that they see the most important things, by default, you're ensuring that they won't see other certain things because you're deciding what's most important.
Let me ask you point blank. Does Twitter censor the content of its users? Does it hide what it would consider inflammatory comments, whether they be social or political?
Absolutely not. Twitter has always been about controls. People can follow whoever they want, and it's our job to make sure they see the most important things and the things that'll matter to them.
You really need to.
So there we go. So the most important things are the things that really matter. So he's kind of covering up. He's saying one thing and then saying another thing, really, and it's hard to understand what exactly he means when he says both those things. So that was back when he was still in charge of Twitter. And that's back when Joe Biden wasn't president yet. Okay, so that was back when Joe Biden wasn't president. So here, fast forward, this is from last year. This is 2021. This is former press secretary Jen Psaki talking with people about COVID misinformation. And she was asked a question about, at this point, there was some spying done on people, apparently, who were spreading misinformation, quote unquote. And someone asked a reporter whether or not, you know, to what extent is the government doing this? And this is Jen Psaki's response to that about, you know, what do they do? Why do they do what they do when they're meeting with these social media companies and meeting with them to discuss things that are need to be maybe looked at a little bit more closely by the media companies, according to the government.
An example. So we're regularly making sure social media platforms are aware of the latest narratives dangerous to public health that we and many other Americans are seeing across all of sources.
So stop right there. That means if you are spreading information about the vaccine, for instance, that says the vaccine isn't all that, it doesn't work, or if you are sending information about saying that, you know, COVID-19 maybe didn't start in a wet market. Those are the things that they need to work on.
Social and traditional media. And we work to engage with them to better understand the enforcement of social media platform policies. So let me give you an example just to illustrate it a little bit. The false narrative that remains active out there about COVID-19 vaccines causing infertility, something we've seen out there flowing on the internet quite a bit, in other places as well, which has been disproven time and time again. This is troubling, but a persistent narrative that we and many have seen, and we want to know that the social media platforms are taking steps to address it. That is.
Here you go. So they're just out there looking out for the best interest of everybody involved, and they're not trying to censor anybody. They're just, it's all for good. It's all for the good of the common people. So here we go. So this is a FBI lawyer there, Phoebe lawyer, James Baker, who was apparently the guy who was in charge of vetting these documents. And so this is from the Daily Caller. So fast forward to present day. So there we go. We have the previous Twitter CEO saying that we don't censor people's speech. Then we have Jen Psaki last year saying, well, maybe we do talk to these social media companies, but it's only so that we can protect the public. And then here's the present day. This is from the Daily Caller. Musk fires ex-FBI lawyer for allegedly stonewalling access to Hunter Biden Twitter files. Elon Musk announced Tuesday that former FBI lawyer James Baker, who was Twitter's deputy general counsel, had been, quote, exited from the company for allegedly holding up on a release of documents pertaining to the platform's handling of the Hunter Biden laptop report. In light of concerns about Baker's possible role in suppression of information important to the public dialogue, he was exited from Twitter today, Musk posted on the social media site in response to Matt Taibbi tweeting a Sunday column by constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley. Taibbi revealed the real reason behind the alleged delay in the Twitter files release in a thread posted on the social media site Tuesday. On Friday, the first installment of Twitter files was published here. We expected to publish more over the weekend. Many wondered why there was a delay, Taibbi posted Tuesday. On Tuesday, Twitter Deputy General Counsel and former FIBI General Counsel James Baker was fired, Taibbi said in a follow-up tweet. Among the reasons, vetting the first batch of Twitter files without knowledge of new management. So here he was going through the Twitter files and applying his own editorial comment to them. It said, Taibbi published documents Friday about Twitter's actions with regards to a October 2020 report by New York Post about the contents of a laptop abandoned by Hunter Biden. Taibbi noted that Baker had urged employees, quote, caution is warranted about the laptop materials because there had been no proof that the materials were not obtained via hacking. So this was before an election. So here you have this former FIBI lawyer now working for Twitter. And at the time when the laptop happened, the laptop was abandoned by Hunter Biden. Here is Baker, now former FIBI lawyer, talking to Twitter employees and saying, look, we have no proof that this did not come from hacking. Therefore, caution is warranted. Therefore, we must censor anything having to do with this Hunter Biden laptop. And so, as Musk has pointed out, that is the definition of election interference. Back to the article. Baker, who was also involved in the probe of former President Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, joined Twitter after leaving in June of 2020. Leaving FIBI. Baker approved the surveillance on Carter Page, a Trump campaign aide, based on information contained in the since discredited Steele dossier. So connect the dots here. You have FIBI lawyer James Baker, who was instrumental in the probe on Donald Trump when he was a candidate, who left the FIBI in 2020. Now Trump is president, candidate again for president, and he is running against Hunter Biden when this laptop thing comes to light. And so what happens is FIBI lawyer, then former FIBI lawyer Baker, now working at Twitter, says, look, we can't authenticate this. Now we must treat this with certain basically we can't cover this. So this is interesting. So you're like, well, that's crazy. He's a FIBI lawyer. Why was he doing that? This is from American Greatness. FIBI met with Twitter, quote, weekly ahead of 2020, warned of, quote, hack and leak operations. This is from Eric Lindrum. In the weeks leading up to the 2020 presidential election, FIBI agents would hold, quote, weekly meetings with the big tech company Twitter to discuss content moderation, eventually leading to the agency warning the platform of so-called, quote, hack and leak operations by foreign, quote, state actors, shortly after the company censored the Hunter Biden laptop story on these grounds. So, shortly before. So here we go. EFF-BEE-EYE, not EFF-BEE ex-lawyers, but actual EFF-BEE agents leading up to the 2020 presidential election met with big tech company Twitter weekly. And then they had they had a warning that said, look, there's something coming out about Hunter Biden. We're afraid this is foreign actors. You know, this is Trump's people again, up to no good. And they're going to try to influence the election. And so in order to prevent these people from influencing the election, it would seem on Trump's behalf, you have to basically be careful about this. And what did Twitter do? It says, the New York Post reports that these claims came from a sworn declaration by Yoel Roth, the former head of integrity for Twitter, filed with the Federal Election Commission on December 21st, 2020. It says, I was told in these meetings that the intelligence community, EFF-BEE, expected that individuals associated with political campaigns would be subject to hacking attacks, and that the material obtained through those hacking attacks would likely be disseminated over social media platforms, including Twitter, Roth's statement revealed. I also learned in these meetings that there were rumors that a hack and leak operation would involve Hunter Biden. Roth's statement was revealed as part of Twitter's defense against a complaint filed by the Tea Party Patriots Foundation, alleging that the platform's censorship in favor of Hunter Biden ultimately constituted a, quote, in-kind contribution to Joe Biden's campaign for presidency. These warnings led to Twitter's unprecedented decision to censor the Post story almost immediately after it broke on October 14th, 2020. Now, that was right before the election. Falsely labeled as, quote, Russian disinformation, anyone who attempted to post the original URL link in a tweet or private message would automatically be blocked from sending the post. The New York Post also temporarily banned in the days of the stories following the story's publication. It was banned for a long time, actually, after this. And this is what the first dump was about. So the first Twitter file dump was about this, Twitter's actions specifically about the Hunter Biden's laptop. So you got EFF-BEE lawyers, you got the EFF-BEE, and you got Twitter all acting in collusion, all acting together in collusion, it would seem, to limit the impact of bad news on Joe Biden and therefore to interfere with the election and throw support to Joe Biden and hurt Donald Trump. All right, so that was the first batch of Twitter files that came out. Now, there's been a second batch of Twitter files come out. This is a more general batch. So this is from the Blaze. Elon Musk released a second set of, quote, Twitter files detailing how conservatives were shadow banned and blacklisted. Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk released a second edition of Twitter files on Thursday, revealing how the company had shadow banned and blacklisted accounts. The story was released to journalist Barry Weiss, who tweeted it in a long thread from her account. A new Twitter files investigation reveals that the team of Twitter employees built blacklists, prevent disfavored tweets from trending, and actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret without informing users. Weiss detailed how Twitter placed the account of Dr. Jay Bhattacharya of Stanford University on a trends blacklist, which prevented his tweets from trending because he argued that the pandemic lockdowns were harmful to children. Now, do you think Twitter just came up with this on their own? This is from this is what people told Barry Weiss, talking about the shadow banning. It says, what is known about shadow banning? That's what the Jack Dorsey was talking about earlier. So what is known as, quote, shadow banning was referred to as, quote, visibility filtering at Twitter. Think about visibility filtering as being a way for us, being the Twitter people, to suppress what people see to different levels. It's a very powerful tool, said one senior Twitter employee to Weiss. This was recently. We control visibility quite a bit, and we control the amplification of your content quite a bit. And normal people do not know how much we do. Weiss quoted a Twitter engineer. There was an official team that handled the shadow banning of about 200 users per day, but there was also a specialized executive team for more sensitive cases of users with high follower accounts. One of those was a popular Libs of TikTok account. That account was publicly suspended for hateful conduct, but interior emails say otherwise. LTT, Libs of TikTok, has not directly engaged in behavior violative of the hateful conduct policy, the committee concluded. The committee instead justified the suspension of the account by claiming the post encouraged harassment by insinuating that, quote, gender-affirming healthcare is equivalent to child abuse or grooming. The hypothesis underlying much of what we've implemented is that the exposure to, i.e., e.g., for example, misinformation, directly causes harm. So they're saying, look, the misinformation causes harm. So we should use remediations that reduce exposure and limit the spread virility of content. And this is a good way to do it. Yoel Roth wrote in an email from 2021. So these Twitter people who were suppressing the speech, it just so happens everything that they do suppresses speech on one spectrum of the political, one side of the political spectrum, and that would be anybody that's not left wing. So here we have now evidence that there was before Biden was in office, that Dorsey was saying there was no shadow banning. We know shadow banning was going on. And then now that Biden's in office, we had Psaki admitting that they're meeting with people routinely. And we know that before Trump got in office, that James Baker was the guy in EFF-BEE-EYE who was heading up all of the initial documents and things sent to the FISA court to start to investigate Donald Trump. See how all of this just merges happily together? And all of this is done without anybody knowing it. And it wouldn't be known at all if for a few things. One is lawsuits, where people like Yoel Roth are forced to testify under risk of perjury. Another one is whistleblowers. So people who go to people like Project Veritas, or people who otherwise send information out that it's not supposed to get out. And three is Elon Musk, because if Elon Musk had not bought Twitter, Twitter would never have released any of this information. And what we don't know is how much of this information is gone. I mean, before Musk took over, how much of this information, which is very sensitive, which is very damning, has been erased. And there's people saying, well, this is a private company and this, that, and the other. This proves that it wasn't a private company only acting on its own. This shows that this is a private company acting on direction, or at least in accordance with what is going on by the EFF-BEE-EYE, which is the establishment, which is deep state, which doesn't matter if there's a Republican in office or if there's Democrat in office. As we have seen since 2015, at least, EFF-BEE-EYE has always had Donald Trump, at least, and Donald Trump by extension, meaning people who support Donald Trump in their sites, through banning of speech, through regulation of what they can say. And you just take this from a standpoint of social media and you just expand it out. Look at all the things that they've done. I mean, if you can ban certain speech on the basis that it causes harm, so for instance, you can ban someone's speech saying, look, I think if you cut a girl's breast off, a pubescent girl's breast off, I think that's child abuse. And then you can say, well, that's harmful. That's speech that we can't allow. And then you have the Deputy Health Secretary, Rachel Levine, basically saying the same thing. Then you have in this you have this dual effort from both the government to enforce what they believe, and then from the social media companies to make it to where you can't say what you believe. It's a very insidious thing. It's almost unbelievable that it happens. And if you didn't know otherwise, if you weren't always suspicious of this, then it would be shocking to you. I was listening to Hugh Hewitt this morning, and Hugh Hewitt's a Republican talk show host, conservative, but he's a conservative in the same way maybe Mitch McConnell's a conservative, or, he's a conservative that thinks that maybe Mitt Romney's, not such a bad guy. And Mitt Romney maybe is maybe he's a solid type of Republican. I don't know if he says that for sure, but anyway, he's a moderate. Okay, let's just say it that way. He's a moderate. He's not going to go to any Trump parades. Let's say he's not going to go to a Trump boat parade. He's not going to be really vocal about anything that's very conservative. He's more of a moderate guy. Anyway, so I was listening to him this morning. He said that he was shocked by this Twitter files, and he was really shocked, totally shocked. I can tell you that most people who are conservative, like very conservative or even moderately conservative, were not shocked at all that this is happening. And I guess it just goes to show how little the general public knows about this type of speech process or speech limiting process that goes on. It's really scary. What else do we have? There's this other thing that happened recently. This Brittany Griner, this basketball player. So she got caught in Russia. She was had some vape pens, and they arrested her. She admitted she had vape pens. She said she didn't do anything purposefully. She was, trying to, say, I'm sorry, mea culpa. Anyway, they sentenced her to 9 years anyway. So she went to 9 years sentence in a penal colony. And there's been a lot of, back and forth about how terrible it is. And it is terrible. Who would want to be in 9 years in a penal colony? So she was there, and it just turns out that, Brittany Griner is kind of one of these social justice warriors, kneel for the anthem, that type of thing. Police are, police brutality, police aren't good people, this type of thing. Anyway, so she's there in Russia, and she's in there. And then in the meantime, we have this guy in our cells who's a gun runner. His name is Victor Bout. Well, they've been trying to get Victor Bout out of prison now for a long time. And now yesterday, or a couple days ago, Brittany Griner was swapped for Victor Bout, who is a Russian arms dealer. And Brittany Griner is a WNBA basketball player. And so we did this switch, and then that was it. And now it's Joe Biden's being lauded as such a great guy because he got Brittany Griner out, and it just shows nobody's left behind, except if you're the Marine that was in there, apparently, that has been left behind. And he's been left behind now for a long time, and it will continue to be left behind. But anyway, Brittany Griner got out. Well, it's funny because no sooner had Brittany Griner got out than this person who was this. She was a spy, actually. She was convicted of being. She was acting as an unregistered foreign agent. Maria Butina. This is from Daily Mail, UK Daily Mail. Russians mock America for swapping arms dealer Victor Bout for Brittany Griner. And it says, Vladimir Putin's top allies in Russia are mocking America over the recent prisoner swap that saw a U.S. release convicted arms dealer Victor Bout in exchange for WNBA star Brittany Griner, claiming that Russia got the better end of the deal. Maria Butina, the pro-Putin MP elected to Russia's Duma after serving a U.S. prison sentence for acting as an unregistered foreign agent, led the charge in taunting the U.S. over Thursday's exchange. The fact that Russia pushed through the exchange of Bout, who America fundamentally did not want to give away for many years, right now means that, like in The Godfather, we, quote, made them an offer that cannot be refused, Butina boasted in Russian on her Telegram channel. This is a position of strength, comrades, she says, and she was deported back. So she's right, though, because this is a position of strength. And there's been a lot of people saying, well, how could Biden be so stupid? Or how could Biden be so weak as to give up a Russian's arms dealer for Brittany Griner, especially when there's a U.S. Marine still waiting in prison there? And there's other people who have been in prison there much longer than Brittany Griner. And they just couldn't bring them. They couldn't use them as leverage to get this. They couldn't use them as leverage to release this arms dealer, but they used Brittany Griner. But it makes me think about the people who run Joe Biden are the same people who ran Obama, or the people who backed Obama and surrounded Obama and Obama himself. And if you remember back when Obama was president, he got Bowie Bergdahl out. He got Bowie Bergdahl out. He was released from, he was under Taliban. He was kidnapped by the Taliban, supposedly, after he deserted his post. Now, I don't know how much kidnapping took place if the guy deserted his post in Taliban territory, but let's just say that he was taken in by the Taliban after he deserted his post. He was an army soldier, so he got released after Obama swapped 5 Taliban people for him, Taliban generals from the Guantanamo Bay, not generals, whatever they are, capos. So 5 big wigs from the Taliban got released in exchange for Bowie Bergdahl. So it makes you think that, maybe it isn't such a big deal that they let Brittany Griner out. This is just a continuation of the same policy that Obama had, which is basically we need to release as many people as possible from our cells that would let us, that make us have an advantage. Because these guys that were released, this is from the Sun.com, these guys that were released now to this day are back in the Taliban working. And this was Bowie Bergdahl was released in, 2009 to 2014. So he was released in 14. And they released these 5 guys in exchange for Bowie Bergdahl. And it says, now, where are the 4 Guantanamo detainees released in exchange for Bergdahl? The 4 members of the so-called Taliban 5 who have joined new government are Acting Director of Intelligence Abdul Haq Wasik, Acting Minister of Borders and Tribal Affairs Nurullah Nouri, Department of Defense Minister Mohammed Fazl, and Acting Minister of Information and Culture Kahura Karkari. In exchange, the 5th member of the Taliban 5 was appointed governor of the Eastern Coast Province. So there you go. So this is just a continuation of the same policies that Obama had. And you think I'm joking when I say that he wants to make America weak and that he wanted to make America weak and the people behind him. But that was actually what his when he became president in 2008, he went on this apology tour. And that was kind of what he said was, look, for too long, we have exerted power that we shouldn't have. And this is got to stop. And, I'm the guy that's going to stop it. And throughout his presidency, Obama did nothing to try to strengthen the American, he did nothing except to try to make America a little bit weaker and make it a little bit less of a world power, because that's unfair that there's a world power and the United States is the world power. And that's what Obama felt. And the people who run Biden feel the same thing. And people that run Biden are left-wing, and they believe that a powerful America is a dangerous thing. It's not a good thing to have a powerful America. And I think this is just part of him or whoever runs him. This is part of Biden's plan to kind of just continue on what Obama was doing. And that's kind of take America down a little bit at a time, take America back down to maybe a level that so, China and Russia can catch up. And that's a lot about what the climate change stuff is about, paying these other countries our money because we've done so much bad and we just got to help them out. It's all part of this weird fixation on the guilt of America and feeling like maybe America as a strong place is not a good thing. But that makes sense to them. It doesn't make any sense to me. And sometimes people try to figure it out, and I think it's impossible to figure out because it's such a different philosophy that just the philosophy doesn't make any sense. The philosophy that says America is bad, it's like the 1619 Project. America was founded on racism. America is a racist country, continues to this day, and the only way to make it better is basically to destroy America. That's in a nutshell what American Marxism is about. American Marxism is about that. One leg of American Marxism is climate change ideology, man-made climate change. Why do I say that? Because man-made climate change ideology says America needs to pay these other countries. America needs to reduce its power through capitalism. America needs to be economically weaker. That's what climate change at the end of the game is about, making America weaker, making capitalism in America weaker. And a part of American Marxism is just resetting it to where America is no longer this global power. And they think that it's bad for America to be a global power. I don't know. Strange thing. I can't explain it, and you'll hurt your head if you try to figure it out from their point of view, because it doesn't make any sense. Kristen Sinema has left the Democrat Party as a, I guess, she says, this is WFLA News. Arizona Senator Kristen Sinema announced her decision to leave the Democratic Party and officially register as an independent. And she says, this is a natural extension of my service since I was first elected to Congress. I have joined the growing numbers of Arizonans who reject party politics by declaring my independence from the broken partisan system in Washington and formally registering as an Arizona independent. This doesn't mean anything, actually, because she said that she's just going to continue to caucus with the Democrats. This is a pure power move by her. Only thing this does is attract attention to her, because she's going to continue to caucus with the Democrats. Presumably, she's going to continue to vote with the Democrats, except for that, 2 times a year when she or Joe Manchin don't, and then they eventually go back and do vote for something that's the same thing that they were voting against, or just a little bit worse, or just a little bit less bad. So anyway, so she's becoming an independent. Means nothing. It's just for headlines. Here's some story here about this came out a few weeks ago that said that Ron DeSantis was going to do a U-turn on his decision to strip Disney of their special status, and this is from Just the News. It says, DeSantis office says no U-turns on decision to strip Disney of special status. DeSantis has no plans to back down against corporate behemoth Walt Disney after speculation that laws put in place in April to dissolve the company's self-governing power were going to be scaled back. In March, then Disney CEO Bob Chapek publicly opposed House Bill 1557, the Parental Rights and Education Act, which was designed to restrict the teaching of gender identity and sexual orientation in public schools from kindergarten through 3rd grade. That's not the only thing. It was designed to restrict teaching of any sexuality in schools, not just gender orientation and sexual identity. The bill quickly became known in the media as the, quote, "Don't Say Gay" bill. Anyway, so it says here, Florida state legislatures are working on a compromise that would allow Disney to keep the arrangement largely in place with a few modifications. That was from the Financial Times and Reuters. And that came out after Bob Iger was reappointed CEO after they fired Chapek because his performance as the CEO had led to very bad stock prices. Iger recently told Disney employees that he was sorry to see us dragged into that battle, quote, and it was according to DeSantis teams, the reports of the governor, and according to DeSantis team, the reports of the governor wanting to scale back laws to benefit Disney are untrue. Governor DeSantis does not make U-turns. The governor was right to champion removing the extraordinary benefit given to one company through the Reedy Creek Improvement District, Griffin said. Griffin is the press secretary. We will have an even playing field for businesses in Florida, and the state certainly owes no special favors to one company. Disney's debts will not fall on the taxpayers of Florida. A plan is in the works and will be released soon. So there you go. There's been a lot of Trump supporters who are trying to claim that DeSantis is some type of RINO, or he's in bed with, Paul Ryan and people like that who are these establishment people. I just don't buy it. DeSantis, other than have been in Congress at the same time as some of these guys, as far as I know, has nothing to do with them now. So I don't know why there's all this talk about DeSantis being a tool of the RINOs or the establishment to, they're going to throw their weight behind DeSantis in order to win the nomination in 2024. I don't think it's the case where DeSantis is ever going to be outed as a RINO. But if you look at people who are very hardcore Trump people, there's some people who are, let's put it this way. There are some people who want Trump, who like Trump so much that they think they will vote for Trump or vote for nobody. And that to me is a bridge too far. I have never felt like I owed any candidate anything. You know, whether it's Trump, whether it's DeSantis, whether it's, Bob Dole. And the idea that you're going to only vote in the election because of this guy is running, and if it's not your guy, that you're not going to vote. If that guy is Trump, and then your alternative is somebody like DeSantis, that to me seems crazy. Now, looking back on it, if I had, to vote again, knowing what I know about Mitt Romney, for instance, would I have voted for Mitt Romney? I don't know. Probably not. Because look, you got Barack Obama. I don't know. I don't know that Mitt Romney would have been a hell of a lot of improvement over. I guess he wouldn't have gone on an apology tour. But Mitt Romney is just he's such a weakling. So anyway, back to my point though, is if you had the choice between Trump and DeSantis, how you could say, look, I'm going to vote for Trump if Trump's running, but if Trump doesn't get the nomination, then I'm not going to vote for DeSantis, and I want to see Biden get back in there. It seems crazy to me. There's this terrible news. This girl that was kidnapped in Texas, poor baby, was named Athena Strand. She was kidnapped in Texas a couple weeks ago, and the story was that she was playing and they didn't know what happened to her, and then she's just missing, and she was missing for I don't know how long, not very long. And of course, when that happens, you always hope for the best, but in your mind, the worst is likely. Well, the worst is likely, and this poor child, Athena Strand, was found to have been murdered by this FedEx driver. And now it turns out that this FedEx driver is saying in a warrant here, he's saying that the reason he killed her was he accidentally hit her with his van. And it says here, this is from Fox News. Stunning new details emerge in the murder of the 7-year-old Texas girl Athena Strand. It has now been revealed that Tanner Horner is the demon who killed the girl. The contracted FedEx driver who struck Strand with his van strangled the girl. Horner claimed that he accidentally hit Strand with his van while delivering what wound up being a Christmas present. Despite being hit by the van, Horner says Strand was okay and even able to talk after the incident and tell him her name. However, the driver apparently panicked and shoved Strand into his vehicle. After attempting to break the little girl's neck, Horner resulted to strangling Strand because he was concerned she might tell her father about the situation, according to an affidavit obtained by the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And it goes on to say that where her body was discovered is now filled with pink balloons because the pink was Athena's favorite color. And this is what her mother said. I just want you all to know that she was amazing. She would truthfully love every single one of you because she loves every human she has ever met and every animal that she has ever met, says Maitland Gandy, Athena's mother. And then this is the grandfather. That was during the vigil. This is the grandfather. I can't quiet my mind and I have to share this. A friend of mine just asked me the other day if I believe God speaks to people. I happen to know he does, as he is speaking to me now. This flesh, this man that I am, is angry, and I want 5 minutes alone in a cell with the psycho that took away Athena from us. But there's a gentle voice in the back of my head telling me I need to forgive him. Athena's grandfather, Mark Strand, said in a tribute. That's something else, I tell you. I don't know. I pray for this family, and I pray for all these children that are harmed. we have to believe, or you have to acknowledge that there's a lot of evil in the world. And you have to acknowledge that evil like this can only be dealt with in one way, and that's for complete, total eradication as soon as possible. This person is going to get better treatment than the people who are the January 6 trespassers or protesters or whatever you want to call them. He is going to have a long life behind bars, most likely. He is going to have 3 square meals a day. He's going to have cable television. He's going to have access to health care that many of you don't have access to. And he is going to live, like I said, probably a very long life, if he even gets the death penalty. If he gets a death penalty, it won't be for many, many years. He's going to have a lot of time to prepare for it. He's going to have a lot of time to think about it. He's going to have a lot of time to have, like I said, he's going to have access to the best health care. He's going to have time, and he's going to be put to death in a very, very humane way. If he gets the death penalty, he'll be put to sleep. No different than if you're going to go to surgery. And so, what do you do about a guy like this? I mean, what do you do about an evil person like this? I mean, I guess the only thing that I can say is that you, like I said, this type of evil needs to be eradicated as soon as possible. And you have to figure out what is it that drives a person like this to do this. And I think a lot of it has to do with our culture. We have such a selfish, rotten culture when you get down to it. We have done so much to dissuade people from seeking any type of spirituality, whether it be Christian, whether it be Muslim, Judeo-Christian, whatever. Secularism, humanism is the way to go. And if you look at secularism and humanism, what is it about secularism and humanism that's so attractive? Well, it's because secularism and humanism is about you. You're the most important. Making you happy is the most important. Not facing up to your responsibilities, just living this carefree life and not being judged. That's why so much about what the left is about, you can't judge people. You can't judge people for, things they do or say. If let's bring it, for instance, this child surgery they want to have on children, and they want to take children and cut their breasts off and give them puberty blockers and surreptitiously slip in propaganda to their programming in order to make them think that if they're young and they're teenagers and that they feel confused, that maybe they're the wrong gender and maybe they should have this irreversible treatment done to them. And if you criticize that, then you're a bad person. This idea that you're not supposed to criticize anybody or people that are like this guy, they're just immune. They're immune from any type of criticism because that's the worst thing in the world. The worst thing in the world now, if you ask the secularist, is people can't have their feelings hurt. Depends who it is, of course. If you're conservative, if you're a certain part of certain groups, then you can have your feelings hurt all day long. That's expected. That's warranted. That's necessary because you are the one who's going about causing everyone else to have sadness in their life, or you're the one that's going about oppressing everybody. But if you're certain groups, though, even if you're what they call a child, what they call a minor attracted person, they're trying to normalize this now, where people who are attracted to children, that's just one of the various different sexualities there are, the 57 genders. This is just one of the 57 sexualities. Maybe you're pansexual. Maybe you like to have sex with men and women, and maybe you like to have sex with children too. That's just the way you are. And who are we to criticize you? But this is how you get to an endpoint like this. This person is not insane, it appears. This person is driven by a reckless disregard for humanity, a callous, evil heart that would strangle a child, that would try to kill a child who had just survived his errant, stupid ass driving, apparently. His incompetent, dumbass driving technique had survived his And then she approaches this guy, tells him her name, and what is his response? He wants to strangle her or kill her so she doesn't tell his father. Now, there's going to be people out there going to be saying, well, we don't know what he was thinking. He panicked. And gosh, we got to have compassion for him. Well, guess what? I don't have any compassion for people like this. I don't have any compassion for this type of thing. And unlike this grandfather, I probably would not be able to forgive this person, nor would I want to. And I would face up to God and tell God that when I got there. And I would say, look, it just wasn't in me to forgive that person. And I agree with what that grandfather said. 5 minutes alone is good enough. It was all it would take to take care of that guy. But anyway, just a thought. Anytime you hear about people saying, well, Judeo-Christian, Christians are bad people. They're too judgmental. This, that, and you never hear of Christians doing things like this. You know that. Now, you may hear somebody who claims to be a Christian doing like this, but no actual practicing Christian, no actual practicing religious person does this. And it's not even about religion. No moral person does this. You can be an atheist and be a moral person, but what we teach in our culture is not morality. We teach immorality. We promote immorality. We promote destruction of family values that can teach it morality. We, as a culture and as a government, seek to destroy families. And in destroying families, you destroy the fabric that has allowed, through millennia, the teaching of morals, the bringing up of children in a loving environment. And that's what you end up with. I don't know this guy's background. I don't care what his background is. I don't give a shit what his excuses are, and there'll be people who will want to know his excuses. I don't give a damn. All I'd like to see is for this son of a bitch to get the electric chair. Of course, that's not going to happen because they don't have the electric chair in Texas. But anyway, anytime you hear about people saying, no, we need to get away from this, judgmental, this religiosity, and or the social media garbage that you see, where that just the rotten crap you see on the media, in the social media, and the rot they promote. This thing about destroying families, teaching that you don't have to have parents in a home, and it doesn't matter if it's a 2-parent household or not. All parent households are the same. No, not all parent households are the same. Optimally, you'd have 2 parents. Optimally, you'd have 2 good parents. Are there some bad parents that are out there? Of course, and there's some good single parents out there, of course, but the idea that you promote the disintegration of the nuclear family, and that's what part of this American Marxism is about, is disintegration of the nuclear family. That's the first and foremost what it's about, disintegration of the nuclear family, because you have to replace government for your family. And that's what it's about. This is evil. This leads eventually to stuff like this, where people are just evil and they have no moral compass, and it's not helped at all by the government. It's not helped by our rotten-ass media and social media. Anyway, prayers to that poor family. And please be careful with your own children. And arm yourself, too. If you're not armed, you don't have to be armed. Look, I'm armed. And I think everyone should be armed if they feel comfortable being armed. And that's how you prevent... And that wouldn't have protected this girl necessarily. God knows what could have prevented this. Maybe nothing. I tell you what may have been preventing it is if she wasn't outside there by herself. But that being said, I don't know what the situation was. But watch your children. But always try to protect yourself. Do as much as you can. And, don't leave home without it is my motto when I have my firearm. Don't leave home without it, and make sure it's safe. Make sure it's out of the reach of children so that you don't want them to be harmed, because that's another tragedy that you don't want to have. But if you're able to, don't leave home without it. Take it with you, because you may be able to prevent something like this with some person who's just has no qualms about taking life. And it may not be like this. It may be somebody else. But there are people out there that don't have any qualms about taking life or liberty from you, and you can be the one to stop them. Anyway, so we're here in Tampa. If you want to hear more of the Dr. Tommy Show, go to drtommy.com/podcast. If you are in the area and you want to have a consult with a concierge medicine physician, our practice is concierge medicine. We are open for new patients, and even through the last of the year, we're going to take new patients. Our practice is completely different than what you're used to as far as the process. It's easy. You walk in, there's no glass windows, there's no sign-in sheets. It's just myself and Tracy, who is my wife, who's the nurse and administrator. I'm the physician, Dr. Tommy, and we take care of people as best as we can to help them get as healthy as possible. And we help them, whether they're healthy or whether they're not healthy, we just help them get as good as possible. And we eliminate all the garbage that's out there as far as barriers between you and your doctor. There's no phone trees. You don't have to worry about waiting weeks and weeks to see us. If you need to see us, we'll see you the same day if possible, if not the next day. And we're here after hours. We're here by phone. We're here by text, email, whatever the case is. And so that's what we do here. We're drtommy.com/podcast for the podcast. And then for the actual practice, drtommy.com. Tracy and I would be glad to see you. And thank you for joining us. Please tune in to us and subscribe. And then also please join us again next week. But until next week, have a good day. And until next week, bye-bye.